I think that's one of the first songs that I ever heard Sammy sing that just ripped my heart, because I've been in that place where you know what you've been and you know what you came out of, and then you know how he picks you up and he turns you around and he saves you when others aren't ready for you to be saved. They're so willing to see you where you were instead of where you're going. I called Alicia at 8:30 this morning, or 8 o'clock, and I said, would you introduce me? And I got a Kleenex. I got one tucked away. We'll see how long it lasts. I didn't think I was going to cry. Anyway, because of the battles that I went through, I wanted to fight through when I'd say, God said I can do this, and God said I can do that, and God said I'm going to get to do this, and God said I'm going to get to do that. And people, leaders that loved me, they'd go, well, it's you. So we're going to just pray you through this, and we'll see what happens, but we don't have much hope. And that's how it was. I wanted to turn around and raise people. Got it? There. Is that good? Okay. I wanted to be able to give people hope. And I wanted to draw out of them what they couldn't see themselves and set it into place. But I didn't know that that was a biblical principle. I just know that I wanted somebody to embrace me and who I was and where I was walking and what I had going on. I already knew the poop pile that had developed behind me. We've been having ladies' meetings on Tuesdays, and I asked everybody their favorite scripture. And then I wanted them to talk about it, because that favorite scripture is usually something that you've came out of, and you just chew on it and chew on it and chew on it your whole life, because it's meant something so deep to you. But mine is trust in the Lord with all your heart. Lean not into your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he'll direct your path. I can't tell you what it says above and below, although I've read it 100 times. But that sticks out to me, that when I get in a bind, then I can say, okay, trust in the Lord with all your heart. Lean not into your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he'll direct your path. And then I cling to that. So I want to read something out of the Word this morning. It's out of Ephesians 4, and this is the Passion Translation, so it reads a little bit differently. And again, that's Ephesians 4. As a prisoner of the Lord, I plead with you to walk holy in a way that is suitable to your high rank, giving to you during your divine calling with tender humility and quiet patience. Always demonstrate gentleness, generous love toward one another, especially towards those who may try your patience. I had a lot of people who tried my patience. A lot. Be faithful to guard the sweet harmony of the Holy Spirit among you in the bonds of peace, being one body and one spirit, as you were all called into the same glorious hope of divine destiny. See, we're called into a divine destiny. See, he spoke to us in the womb of our mother. Alicia's got a little baby growing in her belly, and he's already talking to him. He's already talking to her. We know it's a her. He's already speaking to her, but she's talking to him too. You know, I know when my babies were in my belly, I read to them, and I read the word to them, and nobody told me to do it. I just did it, you know, and okay, now I'm looking for Kleenex. Okay. Anyway, I want to keep reading. For the Lord is one, and so are we. We share in one faith, one baptism, and one Father. And he's a perfect Father who leads us all, works through us all, and he lives in us all. We have a divine being in here, but we don't know if we have access to it. And just before I finish here, I'm just going to tell you, Tricia, God told me to leave all my notes at home, so this is hot off the press, okay? Okay. Sometimes you just got to do what God tells you. And I thought I can't be anything different than who I am. So here's the rest of this. The grace gifts of Christ. And he has generously given each one of us a supernatural grace according to the size of the gift. And this is what he says. He ascends into heaven's heights, taking as many captured ones with him, and gifts were given to men. He ascended means that he returned to heaven, that he had first ascended from the heights of heaven, even to the lower regions, naming the earth. The same one who descended is the one who ascended above the heights of heaven in order to bring restoration and fulfillment of all things. And he has appointed some with grace to be apostles, some with grace to be prophets, some with grace to be evangelists, some with grace to be pastors, and some with grace to be teachers. And their calling is to nurture and prepare the holy believers to do their works of the ministry. As they do this, they will enlarge and build up the body of Christ. These grace ministries will function until we all attain oneness unto the faith, until we all experience the fullness of what it means to know what it is to be the Son of God. And finally, we become one into a perfect man with the full dimensions of spiritual maturity. I didn't know Tricia was going to read that this morning. I didn't know that I was going to ask Alicia to introduce me and for her to say a couple things that triggered something in my mind and confirmed some things to me. But we're all being developed into maturity for the abundance of Christ. It says, and then our immaturity will never end. And we will not be easily shaken by trouble, nor led astray by the novel teachings or by false doctrines or deceivers who teach clever lies. But instead we will remain strong, express truth, and all of our direction ministries will flow from Christ and lead us into deeper relationship into him, and anointed his head of the body, the church. For his body has been formed in his image and is closely joined together and constantly connected as one. And every member has been given divine gifts to contribute to the growth of all. And these gifts operate effectively through the whole body, and we're built up to be made in perfect love. Now, I want to address the prophetic, and I want to address the fivefold. And I don't know what else is going to happen in here because I'm just going to be myself. I'm just in God's living room. When you have an apostolic voice in the house, they're a visionary. They're like Papa Bear. They have the whole vision of everything that's going to be going on. Can they do everything? Maybe. But the apostolic vision has eyesight to see how the whole thing fits together. And the prophetic comes in, and the prophetic knows the heart of God. And he sees things. And there's many categories that come under the listing of being in the prophetic. You have words of wisdom, words of knowledge. The girls sing prophetically. Sammy, you sing prophetically. We minister in song. The girls minister in between songs, speaking things out. And when you're in the anointing of the Holy Spirit, everything is in order. But it can seem like chaos sometimes if God really shows up. We have a lady here is the teacher. Someone's coming in the building. Judy. Who taught the last class? Judy. I've never met a more incredible teacher than this woman, Judy. I mean, the way she teaches, she breaks it down. She asks questions. She's making a list of stuff, and I thought, I don't study that way, but I'm not a teacher. But I am a teacher, but it's like a sub-gift, We're actually meant to operate in all of them at some point. Chris has been an evangelist, traveled many countries, and they give the shout out, I'm dummying it down for you just because I have to have it dummied down for me. But they're like, stir it up, get it working, and they are there to, Alicia, I've messed this up again. They are there to announce that he's coming. And I get stirred up with evangelists. I mean, I get stirred up when I just get stirred up by the Fivefold Ministry. I just do. We have pastors who shepherd the sheep. Bah. I'm acting up. I need a little direction. Bah. Sometimes they just leave a little noogie on their head, Let me just scratch you between your ears. And sometimes they need to be pulled aside and God take them under their wing with the pastor and have him speak to you. And that's where correction and direction and maturity come in. And I've been corrected many times, and still get corrected a lot. But I'm at the point right now where I want to be corrected because I want to move in things that God's called me to without being disrupted and disrupting whatever God's doing in the body. And so I'm going to use the word covet. It's a religious term, but I want that in my life. I want that in my life. And then I've already mentioned the teacher. So have I forgot one? Apostles, prophets, evangelists, pastors, teachers. Chris and Trish over this house, they're the pastors, but they have an apostolic vision for this region. They have an apostolic call to their lives that God has put together. This is a drawing, watering hole. I come in here to get a big drink. And I get it through worship. I get it through the prayer. I get it through conversations with people. I get it. I love revelatory conversations where 2 or 3 of you get together and then what each one adds, you just grow a little bit more. And so when you talk about the fivefold ministry, how does that break down into smaller gifts? Well, it breaks down in a lot of ways. We've got women who've prepared food for us today. And they're working before, and I don't know if during, but definitely after, we eat and greeting people at the doors. And these are all stuff that's inside the church. Nursery workers, cleaning crews. I had a lady come to my house one time, and I was moving in, and it had been destroyed by some young adults. And the toilet, let's just say it needed several hours worth of work. And this lady's like, I got the toilet. I clean toilets, and I'm like, I don't want to clean that toilet. I don't want my hands and face anywhere near that toilet. But she got in there and chipped and scrubbed and chiseled and got it all white and all clean. But that was her gift, and it was Dick Kickbush's wife. Sherry. That was just Sherry. She just took all the crummy jobs. She didn't care, But she did it delightfully, and she was just honored to do it. And so that's the only thing she did for like 3 or 4 hours was clean that toilet and then clean the shower and the bathroom. But it was the toilet that was the big thing. And so anyway, I am getting to a few points here. I want to talk about how God teaches us to hear from him. And sometimes we learn it when we're in church all the time. Sometimes we learn it in my situation. I was in a situation that wasn't conducive to my growth at all, spiritually. And God would just begin to speak with me as a child. And, some of you know me, some of you don't. But the very first time I remember God really, really speaking to me, I had lost a library book. And at 6 years old, my mom was ready to, back then you got a willow switch off the tree. And you got your little calves spanked. And so she said, well, you can't find your library book, go get me a willow switch, And I go, I'll find it. And so I went upstairs, and I'm like, God, please, tell me where is my library book? And it was like, it's over in the shelf, count 4 books down. And I just remember the directions. I had a little upper thing, and and then it had a cave, and then it had all the stuff for the toys down here. It was utter chaos in my bedroom, utter chaos. And I counted 4 books down, and I grabbed my book, and I went running out, and I said, got it, I'm leaving, because I wasn't going to get the Willow switch, and so it showed my mom that I had it. Probably a year later, went to West Virginia, sitting on the mountaintop. Who painted all these things? Because I love to paint, and I like creative things, and I was just asking the Lord, who made all this stuff? And then my mom went to, at the bottom of the mountain, there was a circuit of Methodist churches. So every 4 miles, there was a Methodist church up this little trail of 10 miles. And so they went to the one at the bottom of the mountain. And so we went down to the bottom of the mountain, and they were singing a song, "This is my Father's world. This is my Father's world. Unto my listening ears, all nature sings," And I began to weep. And my mom walked in, and she wasn't real nice how she said it, but she's like, "What the are you crying for?" I said, "I don't know. I just know I have a big dad, and he's bigger than my daddy." But I didn't have a concept of what that was. I just knew I had a big dad. And I wept in church for 10 minutes because at 6, 7, couldn't have been older than 8. I had a concept of something bigger. 5th grade, I was on a school bus in St. Louis. We were heading on a field trip. And I turned to the girl next to me and I said, "Bus is going to catch on fire." She goes, "Okay." And I said, "You go out the front and I'm going to go out the back because I won't have time to get out the front. I have to go out the back." And she goes, "Okay." And so bus caught on fire. She went out the front. I went out the back. They're going, "Where's Debbie? Where's Debbie?" And she goes, "Oh, she told me the bus was going to catch on fire. She went out the back. She wasn't going to have time to get out the front." And so the teacher comes over to me. So she came around the back of the bus, and I was just standing there watching the bus in flames, And I was just like, holy cow, the bus caught on fire. 5th grade. That's 10 years old. 10 years old. It's not very old. But there was an instinct in me that God was developing something. Alicia and Whitney have published pictures of them. Whitney was 18 months old, about 18 months old when you were playing the piano. Alicia, I'm sorry. I know who they are really well. I'm just getting 63 now, But anyway, Alicia was playing the piano, and her mom was singing in the background. And you just see her little hands go up, and she's worshiping, and then she's banging, bang, bang, bang. Nothing coming out of her. But when does God start developing the gifts with you? When you arrive, and then all of a sudden, pow, it's there? No. He starts developing it way back then. I got in so much trouble when I was growing up all the time. Debbie talks too much. She's constantly interrupting people around her. She's. That's what all of it was about. Whitney loved the camera, and so she would make little videos and do all kinds of stuff. Well, now she likes the marketing. She likes the videoing and videography, and that's what she does in her job. And so it was instinct back when they were babies being built up to who they are today, and it's prevalent in their ministry. So God was calling forth something. I don't know, I keep looking at you. It's because you're right here. Okay. Yeah, you look good. But those things were being developed in them that now that they've achieved where they are today, those things are prevalent in their ministry. They're writers, they're songwriters, they've written books. They've developed into really quite fine young women. I'd rather minister with them, I say, than almost anybody I know, because the 3 of us work together like a well-oiled machine when we're out. And I just have watched them mature from being 20 to where they are today, to watching their ministry develop. They're getting ready to go do their 3rd album next Monday. They're leaving to go record their 3rd album in Georgia. Yeah, I get a couple of those cities mixed up. But anyway, I want to go, but it's a lot of work. But anyway, God's doing good things with them. But what's called forth is the gifting that was in them and has been brought to a place where they're handling most of their responsibilities with their ministry. They support babies with the orphanage. They do all kinds of things. But to see it in its infant stage when they didn't even have instruments to play at a fundraiser for them. And I said, well, what have you got? Use it. Well, I got tracks and we got this. So they raised the money to go to Honduras. They've been out of the several nations, countries, that they've been to. And to see that develop in them has been incredible. I just want to go to Africa or someplace with them. I haven't done that yet, but someday. It's not just Alicia and Whitney. My son Matthew, for Mother's Day, wrote a thing in Facebook, and he said, my mother has born legends. And he always calls himself a legend because he's a legend in his own mind. Hasn't fully arrived yet, but I just keep waiting. He's on a field trip, and when he arrives, he's done a lot of great things, but he also has sorrowful choices that we've made, just like when I sing Jesus breaking strongholds. I want to see those strongholds broken, Sammy. I want to see those things. It wasn't in that song that we were singing, I Speak Jesus, but it's talking about breaking the strongholds. For the first time in my life, I see obstacles that I've overcome. I forget how far I've come, and I realize how far I have to go, and I want to get there because I want to be able to run my race forward, like you were talking, not focusing on the things of the past, but focusing on the things of the future. So in life, my husband and I belong to a church in Columbia, Missouri. My husband was raised a Seventh-day Adventist, and I used to think, why did you bring me to the law just to teach me about the law and then release me into freedom into a non-denominational church, where there was incredible worship. I was scared to death, and they had timpani drums, and we had a big orchestra, and it was like this incredible worship. My husband's got his hands up in the air like, beam me up, Scotty, I'm home, I'm ready to go. And I was just like praying, like, get me out of here, and I promise I'll never come back. I promise this is too weird for me. And then I was transitioned into worship instead of just singing songs that were hymnals, although those mean a lot to me. There's some in there, Old Rugged Cross and Amazing Grace, and there's some of the oldies but goodies that you just can't get past. But I love the new ones too. And wait till you hear this new ones that the girls have got coming out. I just heard some of the songs. Sorry, it's a preview. But it's about leaving past and moving forward. And it's about our beloved, and that's going to be incredible. So just watch for it. But anyway, when we ended up in this church in Columbia, we were there for 18 years, and that was probably the most healing place for me in my whole life, because I had men and women that were around me that received me for who I was and let me transition into who I was going to become. Could it have been done faster? A whole lot faster. But I don't know where Matthew gets it, but I was just kind of like one of those, dig my heels in, I'm going to be a mule. And I'm not going to put one foot in front of the other. And I thought I had everything figured out. I had everything figured out, how I was going to survive, how things were going to be. And I didn't realize that a lot of my perceptions, a lot of my visuals, and a lot of things were so off base that I didn't know. I didn't know there were other ways to do things. And so one by one, as people started teaching me to, and I still have a lot to learn in this area, but I'm a clutterer, so I have neat clutters, but I'm a clutterer. But I have friends that, their bathroom floors are spick and span and all kinds of things. But those women started feeding into my life, and they started changing me. But as they were changing me in the natural, they started changing me spiritually, because I wanted to hang around them, because I didn't witness that in my home. We had 20 piles of laundry all the time. And I don't even want to tell you sometimes what some homes go through, that you just go digging through that and find the cleanest thing you can find and maybe turn it inside out or fluff it up in the dryer. Never thought to wash it until I was in high school. And then I had a few friends that told me a few things in high school. But that was just how a lot of people are raised sometimes. It's just how it is. And so anyway, you find yourself growing and maturing. But I always say hot off the press, if I learn it, I'm turning around and teaching someone else. With learning how to hear from the Lord prophetically, I don't know if it came by the Lord prompted me to share money with people, and it'd be $10 here, $20 there, and then God would make up all of these. I'd have $30, I'd give a 20 away. I gave a $20 bill away to a man walking in front of a cancer hospital, and they were walking and they were praying and asking God for a $20 bill because their car was stuck, getting a muffler put on it, and the guy would not let him go home and pay $20 later. And so they were walking, praying for a $20 bill to get from Columbia to Kansas City. And the Lord said, I want you to stop and give that man a 20. Oh, I only got 30. Well, give him 20. And I said, okay, God. So I'd drive around, turn around, come back and go, hey, I got something for you here. And the guy comes running over and he goes, and he just took the $20 bill and he goes, the Lord has provided. Well, that was my first clue that God had done something, And then it would be, and then I went to the grocery store, and for $10, they were clearing out all the bins at Aldi's. Here's a big bag of bananas. You want this for 10 cents? Sure. Okay, we're getting rid of bread. Do you want all these bags of bread? We got 20 loaves of bread here. Will you just take them for like $1 and just get them out of here? Sure, because I had a freezer at home. I walked away with $100 worth of groceries from my $9.99. And I don't know how it happened, but it was more than I was going to get if I had that $30, And then, after I've had all this experience now with giving away money, I'm going to Sonic, and God's asking me to give a $10 bill away to a girl. And she didn't bring me a straw. And I had an attitude. I said, well, she didn't bring me a straw, so I'm not giving her a tip. And the Lord goes, see that money laying in your chair? Yeah, I want you to give her a $10 bill. Well, if she comes out and picks up the trash, I'll do it. She walked right out and picked up trash around the trash can. And I was like, dang it, And then she went back in, and I go, okay, well, she comes out, and if I flick my lights and she sees them, because back at A&W when you were a kid and you wanted the waiter to come to your car, you'd flick your lights and they'd come running out. I mean, some of you aren't old enough to remember that, but I do. So I thought, well, I'll flick my lights, So I flicked the lights, and she came running over. Can I help you with something? And I was like, yeah. And I said, when you came out, and I said, you picked up the trash? And she goes, yeah. And I said, and I flicked my lights, and you came over? And she goes, yeah, I just barely saw it. And she goes, you're my last car for the day. And she goes, I'm just cleaning up, getting ready to go home. And I said, the Lord told me he was more pleased with you than he was with me. And I said, and I'm supposed to give this $10 bill to you. And she threw open my car door. And this was back 20 years ago or more, 25 maybe now, maybe even longer. I'm getting older now. And so the door flies open, she hugs me, and that was the $10 she needed to pay her electric bill, and they were shutting it off. And she said, I did not get a tip all day. And she said, and I did my job cheerfully. And she goes, I felt really bad when I forgot your straw. I said, I don't care about the straw. I said, I care more that God just told you that he was more pleased with you than he was with me. And I said, and I thought I was a mature Christian. I said, I'm really sorry. And I start crying. And then she prayed for me. She goes, oh, don't worry about it. It's okay. God provided $10. I got the $10. And so she went and paid her electric bill. Never saw her again. Went back there, never saw her again. Never saw her again. Never saw her again. Never saw her again. So one day I'm reaching around and talking to a couple friends, and I was depressed. I've had a lot of issues with weight issues. I still have a weight issue, but 230 pounds ago, I was getting ready to, I started going to the pool in a bathing suit and thought I have to start somewhere, and if everybody laughs at me, it's just the way it is. And pretty soon they got used to me. Oh, there she is again. Pretty soon they're like, hey, Debbie, and then it was kind of cool. But one day I called my friend and I said, I feel like a failure. I feel like I'm just failing God miserably. This area of my life is so out of control, and I don't know what I'm doing wrong. The doctors don't seem like they can help me. And, I was stuffing myself, huge amount. Listen, y'all, I like groceries, so I was eating a lot, and I made myself sick eating so much. But anyway, so I prayed with Audrey, and Audrey said, I pray that when you go to the pool, that an angel stirs the waters for you, and that you come up out of the water, and that God has an attitude adjustment for you. I've never shared this story publicly. So I went to the pool, and there was a black woman at the pool. And in Columbia back then, 30 years, 40, I don't know, 35, let's just say 35 years ago, there just weren't a lot of black people around. And so this black woman is in the pool, and she starts coming up these wide stairs. And she said, I stirred the waters for you. And I said, oh, are you my divine appointment today? And she goes, yeah, I am. I have a word from the Lord for you. She goes, would you like me to walk with you, or do you want me to just stand here and talk to you? Or you stand there and I talk to you? And I said, well, I'd like for you I think I'll just stand here. And I got chest deep in the water, and I said, I think I just want to listen to what you have to say. And she said, the reason you can't go any further than where you are right now is, she said, because you only can see what's today. You have no visual for the forward. You have no visual for moving forward, so you're stuck. And she said, I'm here today to turn you around, plant your feet on solid ground. That's why that song meant so much to me. And I want to establish you in the things that are coming. This was 25, maybe 30 years ago now. I'd have to look at the date, but at least 25 years. I've been here since 98, so y'all do the math. I don't want to. So I'm in this pool, and she begins to tell me, you're not a failure. You're on course. You're on time. You're not a day late. You're not a day behind where God wants you. The reason you're failing is because you can't see ahead. And I said, okay. And she goes, I want to recall to you now, tell me 3 things that people have prayed over you in the last couple of years. And we'd gone through some meetings in St. Louis. I think they were Rodney Howard-Brown meetings, and some other meetings that we went to. And there were pastors who prayed over me. And I just believed when it's God, there's always something that attaches itself to a word that that, like I said to somebody one day, you're not a fluffy Christian. I don't even use the word fluffy. But I told Donna Howell, she's an author, I said, you're not a fluffy Christian. Just that morning, she had told God, I'm not a fluffy Christian. So that was something that tied her to what I said, that she goes, oh, I need to pay attention to this. And so she did. Well, there were things in this word that this black woman brought to me that tied into things that had been said that were projecting me into the future. But I thought it was tomorrow or like a week or 2 weeks. I didn't know it was going to take 20 years. And I don't know if it took 20 years because that's how words can be, or because I was, and like my son Matthew. And he got it from somewhere. It wasn't my husband, I don't think, so. So anyway, she began to tell me, she said, in your future, I see media. I see you speaking over leaders. I see you raising leaders up in places where they've given up. And she said, and I see you moving forward with things like that. And she talked to me about writing books, and and I'm still being told about writing books, and now I'm getting an assignment to write a book. But so all I know to do is to say that you keep moving in the things of God. And I don't even know what time it is. Where are we at? I'm good? Okay. So this woman, she wanted to pray for me. And she asked me to pray about the days that were coming, that I would fulfill my destiny. And so, and after that moment, I called back and I talked to Audrey, and Audrey was a pastor's wife, friend of mine, and I told her what had happened, that this lady had stirred the waters. And that woman, when she walked back into the, where you change your clothes, And when she walked, I didn't know if she'd come back out. I mean, I didn't know if I talked to an angel. I really didn't. And then she walked back out. She had this long scarfy thing on with these leggings. And then she just kind of flowed, and she goes, I'm on to my next assignment. But she goes, you keep pressing into yours. But she prayed for me that I would be turned around. Do is it a 180 where you go the opposite direction? That I wouldn't focus on negativity, which I have fought my whole life just because of the environment I came out of. But I started moving forward with some of those things. Well, then after that, after meetings and things I was going to, we'd be in restaurants, and there would be people I'd be impressed to talk to, and they were leaders from other churches. Significant leaders. When I say significant leaders, leaders that are voices of the nation that are making changes in the earth. But they were things that were witnessed by a handful of people, not a lot of people. And while God's training you, He's really good to let you make your mistakes in front of smaller groups so that you can speak to it, right? And realign yourself and then keep moving forward. There's things that I say that I've picked up through the years that, like one of them is, do what I say, when I say, how I say, no more, no less. And sometimes we want to get the whole kit and caboodle and get all of this memorized and do everything instead of just doing the one next act of obedience that's put in front of you. And if it's, being asked to stop at a car and help, I was asked to stop at a car one time, and I was like, I can't help her. She's got a flat tire, and I'm a girl, and I can't do it, And so the Lord said, I want you to stop. And it couldn't have been 1 minute. Came around the block, stopped at the car, and I said, is there anything I can do to help you? You need a phone? A man had stopped and was changing her tire. And she goes, it's okay. He called someone else. And I drove away from that weeping my guts out because I knew what he was saying. I knew what she said. She was going, he called someone else because you didn't stop in time. And I was like, Lord, it was only a minute. And he goes, Debbie, there's going to be a time that I need you to stop and say something to someone when you're the only person that can do it. How many of you are out there? I call it the marketplace. We're in the church a couple days a week. We're in the marketplace and in our homes far more than we are in the marketplace. In the church, we're in the marketplace. And your sphere of influence, Sammy's influence is different than Alicia and Whitney's, than Granny's, than some of you ladies sitting over here. We affect different people. We've gone through different things in our lives that have been, some of them, when I've heard some of the stories of some of the women in this church, and I thought I had it bad. I thought, I'll take my poop pile. I'll just keep this. Because when I hear about people that have gone through misabuse and several husbands that have been very destructive, and you witness and hear all of that and see that they still stand in God, they still trust Him, they still move forward, they're still putting their foot forward, and they're making changes in the kingdom. Those are the voice changers in the earth today that we need. Those are the ones that are bringing kingdom changes to people who are the passion of the Christ that are waiting outside of the walls of the church. As long as I don't forget who I am when I come into the church. When I first came into the church, I didn't want nothing to do with the world. No more. Nada, no way, nada, nada, nada. God just goes, you know what? You got to be willing to go backwards sometimes. And because, see, I'm a warrior now. You don't see my camouflage outfit? I said the right word, right? Okay, thank you. Sometimes I get words confused, just so you know. But I have a way out that I can show other people that are going through what I've gone through. And I've done it the right way. Well, there's no right way to anything. Because what's right for me isn't always right for someone else either. But I have a way that if God connects me to someone, and I know it's a divine appointment, that I can speak into their lives and hopefully usher in change that's going to be, like what Alicia said, seeing what's in someone. The prophetic motivates, it encourages, it exhorts. Debra means busy bee. And I always like to think I cross-pollinate with people. That I'll land on this one and give a little dust here, and then I'll land over on this one, give a little dust, and there's a cross-mixing that happens spiritually as well as in the natural. And then later on, I realized when I started thinking about that, and I found out I have a little bumblebee. Confession, truth tattoo, just right here. It's a bumblebee, and sorry, Chris, but its name is Boo. Boopy. Just tell you. That was my one spiritual act, so I could go, hey, I have a tattoo too. When all these kids show up with all their tattoos, I go, I got one too. I don't know why I did that, but I did, and now it's done. Yeah. But it has come in handy on a few occasions. So, anyway, now I lost my train of thought because I left that dumb bee. Oh, I found out my grandmother's a beekeeper. And I just thought she's a queen bee. And Debra means queen, as well as motivator, encourager, or exhorter. It means bee, bumblebee. And so I just thought that was kind of cool. And now I have a nephew that's gone into being a master beekeeper. And so that was kind of cool. I just thought, yeah. So it's funny how there's things that come along through the line. So how do we take the prophetic and we apply it to today? Well, that's when I start praying, God, give me eyes to see and ears to hear. I want to see the things in the Spirit. I want to be out on the front edge. I want to be right out where He's doing stuff. If I get distracted or I'm hung up with things behind me, I would have been stuck back at 450 some odd pounds. I had a pastor challenge me one time. He goes, how much do you weigh? And I go, I don't know. There's not a scale that'll weigh me, because mine only goes so high. And I would have guessed around 300 pounds in my mind's eye. And then when it came time for me to face some surgery and some things, and they weighed me, they had to weigh me in a bed because there was nothing else that would weigh me. And that's after I'd lost a little bit of weight, and I weighed 457 pounds. I was probably closer to 500. And I hate to even think that, because where in your journey does that seem okay that when I couldn't lose 50 pounds, how am I going to turn around and lose several hundred pounds, except that I'm going to start eating healthy? And the only thing I kept begging God for is that He would give me balance in my life. And do I fight it? And now what's happening to me is I'm getting in situations where the cleaner I have eaten, and then I don't. See my little fingers? You can't see them very well. But inflammation is setting in. And so I can't get away with eating sugars or the grains or things that I used to eat that make sugar in my body. So God is making sure that I can't backtrack. Darn it. But there are other good things that I can eat, and I've learned to adjust to them. But, unfortunately, the foods we eat now have a lot of chemicals in them, and you get addicted to those chemicals. And sugar is one of the most addictive things that we can eat. And there's a lot of hidden sugars. There just is. But anyway, so fighting forward. And I want to wrap this up. When we're moving forward, we can't get tripped up in negativity. We can't get tripped up by things in the past. We can't get tripped up by being depressed or discouraged. And that song, I Speak Jesus. It says, go to the mountains, go to the cities, go to the streets, break the strongholds. If I don't become an overcomer, how can I expect anybody to overcome around me? I want my family. If nothing else, if I got 20 pounds, I don't know what I'll end up weighing. I don't know. I don't care. I just want to be healthy. I want to be able to get down on the floor. There's one other story that I feel like the Lord's wanting me to tell you. There was a lady at a conference that had been running, but she ran with a limp. And one leg was 4 inches shorter than the other. And at the end of the conference, we were having a prayer time, and one of her legs was sliding in and out of her pants like this, but she was laid out on the floor. And so the pastor's wives called me over, like, I know what I'm doing. And they said, what do you think's going on? I said, well, I don't know, something's going on. I said, why don't I just ask her? So I crawled down on the floor, and what I did is her back was humped up, and I put my hand underneath her back. And there was clunking like there was a baby in there, but it was her back, not her belly. And she goes, what's going on? I said, I don't know, we think God's doing something. I said, how do you feel? And she goes, okay. She goes, I'm a little nervous because everybody's looking, and they're videoing it. And I said, well, I said, do you have a leg that's longer than the other? And she goes, yeah. And I said, well, your one leg is sliding. And the only word I can use is a hydraulic. You know what a hydraulic is? It goes, that's what it was doing for a half hour. So I've got my hand up underneath her back, and by the time her back is bowed, my hand ended up flat against the floor, and her back is now straight. And I said, I'm going to sing to you. Wasn't Sammy singing to her. I said, I'm going to sing to you, just to keep your mind off things. And let's just stay in a state of worship. And let's just watch for a little bit and see what God's doing. And so I just started singing quietly in her ear, and she quieted down and calmed down. There were people laid out in several places around, and people just quietly sitting around watching. And then it was pretty obvious it was over. Like when you're done, you're done. I guess it was done baking, you know. And so they helped her up, they helped me up, and all I know is that I was drunker than anything I've ever known in my life. I could not move. They went and got a hotel for the luggage. They pushed me up on it, and I was walking fine back then. And then they pushed this other girl on there too, and because she was there with me. And we were laughing, crying, weeping, because we knew we had seen something, but we didn't know what we had seen. And so they wheeled me to my room, and they dumped me into bed, and I didn't know anything till morning. And I got up in the morning, and this girl came downstairs, and Wendy Virgo called her over and said, I want her to testify. She said her legs were the same length. They'd grown out 4 to 6 inches. I can't remember how long it was. It's been too long ago. And in her back were metal bars. And those metal bars were now flattened against the ground. And she could bend like those metal bars had never been in there. And when she went back to the doctor, those metal bars were gone. Now, did I do anything? No. I just had enough guts to go over there and go, hey, what's going on? I just got to be there. But that was probably one of the more incredible things that I've seen in my lifetime. And then to know that that girl became a runner, and she was in her 20s, and, you know, running for the college and doing all kinds of stuff like that. And I don't ever know whatever happened to her. I know it's on video. They keep telling me they're going to send it, and I've never gotten it, and it doesn't really matter. Because it's not the name that's important. The woman at the well, she did not know who Jesus was. But she evangelized and ran into town telling everybody about him. And they go, what's his name? I'm using my words. I don't know, I didn't ask him. Come meet the man that knew everything about me. He knew all the husbands I had. And he didn't judge me, he loved me. And that's what we're called to do. Now, with words of wisdom, words of knowledge, I've been in front of prophetic people that get numbers, names, and they'll stand up here and call things out. There are people who have dreams. And there's so much that can be studied in this that we almost need Pastor Chris. I mean, just theologically, homiletically, systematically, whatever words he comes up with, going through it. You know, and it'd be like all, you know, it'll come up with all, and he'll have 50 words to go with all, you know. But there's so much interpretation of dreams, and again, like Whitney and Alicia, singing prophetically, Sammy, singing prophetically, speaking prophetically, Pastor over here, you know. And then in our own lives, if we tie into the fivefold, we'll be speaking into people's lives where you bring about change when you get past your past and call forth. So we become a part of what Ephesians was saying of the divine order, of knowing He is in us. And because He is in us, I am then because He is. I'm seated at the throne. I'm seated by Him in heavenly places if I choose to act like that. If I choose to believe I can be healed from those things. I want you to come sing the song. Mm-hmm. And the last one you did.
I speak Jesus.
Yeah, I speak Jesus. You guys going to come up now for? I want the strongholds to be broken in your lives. The things that are negative. We have got to listen to who He is in us and realize that's who our lives are. And the prophetic and the apostolic and the teaching and the pastoral, they're tools that God gives us to get where we're going. But they'll take you higher. They'll take you into not being religious, but to learning to dress well, dress for, keeping your house clean. Joyce Myers used to say, if you can't take charge of a sink full of dirty dishes, how in the world are you going to do anything else? When I went to Aldi's, I hated putting my quarter in that machine. So I started being really religious about it. I started giving my card away because I was too lazy to walk back and put the quarter in it. But it started something at Aldi's where everybody was given their cards. And then I realized it was a conspiracy of kindness that was evoking itself out into the situation. With the prophetic, there are going to be things that the more that I've asked God to move in this gift, a lot more is required of you. There's times that you have to be confidential about things. There's times that you can't share what God has given you to share. There's times you can only speak to the things that you know to speak to, and then God won't let you speak the rest of it. That's why I said, do what I say, when I say, how I say, no more, no less. Don't embellish it and don't think you understand it. You won't always understand it. All you're doing is given the ability to speak something into someone's life. Sometimes you might just start with sharing with somebody. Sometimes it's praying with someone. And then when you pray with them, you may spiritually be speaking into their lives and you don't even know it. But the more that you start practicing, I had one prophetic guy tell me, I'd rather you try. And if you blow it, we'll talk about it and then correct it, but keep moving forward because there's something here that God's building. I want to be one who prays over people whose lives are changing the nations, that have gotten discouraged, they've thrown in the towel, they want to give up. The sheep have been bad, and they don't know what to do with them because people just want to throw their fits and take up your time, and pastors and leaders don't deserve that. Are there immature leaders? That's a whole nother subject. That doesn't need to be, that's not what I'm talking about right now. Right now I'm talking about our divine calling. And our divine call is it says all of creation is waiting for the you and me to come forth. I want Him to come forth from me. I want the strongholds to be broken so that I'm not hindering someone. What did Jesus speak over you when you were in the womb of your mother and then earth set in? And all of the labels that people put on you. I want to speak the name of Jesus. I want to sing it from the mountains. I want to sing it from the streets. I want to sing it from the church too. And just by the way, that lady who spoke over me 25 years ago, for 25 years or more, I've contended for those things to come about and say, God, I still believe you. Will you serve me in your weakest moment? I will. Serve you when you've had surgery on your leg, serve you when you've had surgery. when your husband's dying in the hospital. We ministered to 40, 50 people, and that's probably a small amount. For months, it was a lot higher amount. But we shouted from the hospital. I did not get crippled by that. Do I miss him? He's my best friend. But I am not going to stop my growth because he's probably already going, you're going to be here soon. It won't be long. And I don't mean like I'm ready to go now. I mean, I'm ready to move on and keep bringing about the purpose of the kingdom. Sing, Sammy.